Working on a 4R44E Ford transmission out of a 2000 Ford Ranger. On this video, it's real quick. I'm going to show you how to adjust the bands. And this applies to pretty much any 5R55E SN or W variant or 4R44E SN or W variant. And the reason why you would do this is because it's essentially almost like it's kind of like a brake shoe. There's a drum inside that spins, and there's a band that wraps around it. Think like old school go-kart brakes where there's a drum and it applies a band and it grips the drum and keeps it from moving. So the way you can have issues with this is different if you have a 5R55 or a 4R44, and the reason why is because on a 5R55E, even though it's 5 speeds, it's really using the same gears. So it applies the overdrive band on first gear to give you a virtual second gear. So if you're having issues with second gear or fifth gear on a 5R55E, you might have an issue with your overdrive band needing adjustment. And if issue with third gear, it may be your intermediate band. For 4R44E, the shift uses these bands associated with these gears. So second gear is actually the intermediate band, and fourth gear uses the overdrive. And real simple procedure. What we're going to do is these little studs right here. We're going to take these lock nuts back them off. We'll tighten each stud down to 10 foot-pounds, back it off 2 turns for this model, and then tighten the lock nuts. But it's pretty much the same for all years. 95 to 98, the manual says something different for the intermediate band and says it needs to be backed off 2.5 turns, but everything else is 2 turns. And again, this is overdrive, this is intermediate band, and it'll look a little different because you'll have a wiring harness connector here if it's in the vehicle. You can do this in the vehicle, no problem. You don't have to have it out of the vehicle. And there'll be a shift cable that comes across here. Get a pry tool, pop it off here, and then you can pop it off this bracket right here. But really, all you need is a torque wrench. This is a 1/4 inch drive torque wrench because it is 10 foot-pounds, but we want it to be really accurate. So we're using an inch-pound rated torque wrench, which 10 foot-pounds is 10 foot-pounds is 120 inch-pounds. You're just multiplying any foot-pound measurement by 12. A 19 millimeter combination wrench and a breaker bar, and I'll show you why in a minute, an extension. And this is a 5/16 this is a 5/16 8-point socket right here. And so let me show you an example of me adjusting it real quick. All right, for this one, just for this quick demonstration, here's the 2 right here, but I'm only going to do the overdrive band adjustment. So what I want to do is, the reason I take the breaker bar is because I don't want to use a ratchet and have any kind of movement where it resets itself. Okay, so I'm taking my 5/16 8-point socket, I'm putting it on the stud, and I'm using the breaker bar to hold it still. So even if I turn this either way, it won't ratchet. It just stays where it needs to be. Let me back out a little bit so you can see this. I'll take my 19 and I'll loosen this lock nut there, and I want to hold it in place, and I'll back this nut off. Really about 3 turns or whatever would be fine. But anyway, that's backed off, and actually you can see right here, see this little orange? This is the seal for this washer. It may stick to the nut or it stays on here, but that's what keeps fluid from coming out. But anyway, I backed the nut off, but my stud stayed fine. And so now I'm gonna take this and I'm switching to the torque wrench. Again, that's set for 120 inch-pounds. And I'm gonna tighten this. This has already been pre-adjusted, so it's only going to go in 2 times. Okay, yours, if your bands are worn down, just like it's like making a brake drum adjustment, it may go 2.5, 3 turns in. But anyway, I have it set for 120 inch-pounds. And feel it getting a little tighter. We'll listen for that click. Second. Hear that? All right, so that's in place. We're tightened down exactly to 10 foot-pounds or 120 inch-pounds. Now we'll switch back over to our breaker bar. And again, the reason why I want to do this is because I don't want the ratchet to knock off my angle, okay? So I'm going to try to set this at a position I can easily see. It's a little bit back. If you can see this right here. So I'm getting closer to the 11 o'clock position, but it's just a little far back. So watch this position. I'm not going to bend this in any way. I'm just going to turn it. So we'll go 1 and 2. All right, and we keep it here. All right, now we will tighten our nut back down. There's that. And use our 19 millimeter wrench to tighten that down. And that is it. That's an adjustment. It's really quick, it's real simple. Again, don't try to back these, or don't try to back these studs out too far. Or actually, you shouldn't be backing them out because they're already pre-backed out from the last tightening procedure if they were done correctly. But if you back them out too far, the components that they're tied into inside the transmission can come loose and drop down, and you don't want that. Otherwise, you're taking your transmission out. You got to get the bell housing out to get into it. The only other thing I could say is before you start this procedure, go ahead and use a wire. This is nylon, but use a wire brush and clean the threads off, because if there's a lot of rust, transmission's been leaking like crazy, so everything's coated and nice and oiled up. But these threads right here can get rusted, and when you try to back the nut off, they can actually get stuck on those rusty threads. But anyway, that's the procedure. Real quick and simple. So if you're having shifting issues on your 5R55E and second, third, or fifth, try this, or you're getting some weird shift code related to those gears, or if you have a 4R44E with shifting issues on second gear or fourth gear. And you can always look in your door jamb of your truck or Explorer, whatever you got, and it should give you a transmission code. I don't have the list right now, but you can look up that code and see which transmission you have. And thanks for watching.